The wind whips across these mountains, a constant, lonely sigh. For centuries, people have looked at this landscape, Armenia specifically, and asked themselves, what happened here? The stories tell of pride, of a desperate attempt to reach heaven. But is that all there was? There's an unsettling feeling when you stand amidst these peaks, a sense that something ancient and significant lies buried beneath the stone. It's not just the geography, though it's undeniably brutal, a testament to nature's power. It's something deeper, a feeling of displacement, as if a civilization once thrived here, only to vanish without a trace. The Bible speaks of Babel, a tower built in defiance of God, ultimately destroyed for its hubris, a cautionary tale, etched into our collective memory. But what if that narrative is incomplete? What if it's merely a simplified version of a far more complex story? Archaeological digs have unearthed hints, tantalizing glimpses, of something beyond the biblical account. Deep within this region, beneath layers of time and shifting sands, lie remnants of settlements unlike any other found in Mesopotamia. Consider Göbekli Tepe, thousands of miles away, but sharing a similar cultural heritage. Its massive stones, intricately carved with symbols we don't fully understand, suggest an advanced understanding of engineering, far beyond what was previously believed possible for that era. And then there's the water. Across this land, you find evidence of incredibly sophisticated irrigation systems, networks designed to channel and control water flow with remarkable precision. These weren't simple ditches, they were complex hydraulic feats. Imagine the skill, the planning required to construct such a system in this challenging terrain. It speaks to a people who understood their environment intimately, who possessed a deep knowledge of engineering principles. It raises a question. What else might they have been capable of? The language itself holds clues. Proto-Indo-European, the ancestor of countless languages spoken today, including Hebrew and Aramaic, originated in this area. To trace its roots is to connect with a linguistic history stretching back millennia. Think about it. If a common ancestral tongue once flowed through these valleys, sharing ideas and innovations, could those same threads have woven together a civilization far more sophisticated than we currently imagine? Could the builders of Babel have possessed knowledge lost to time, a mastery of material science, or perhaps even rudimentary forms of, well, let's just say advanced concepts? There's no easy answer, of course. The dating is contentious. Some researchers push back the timeline considerably, suggesting that these settlements predate established historical records by centuries, even millennia. Other interpretations focus on localized development, dismissing the possibility of a widespread, unified civilization. But consider this. What if the true ambition wasn't about reaching heaven? What if it was about something far more practical? Survival. This region faced periodic droughts and harsh winters. The builders of Babel might have been attempting to create a self-sufficient community, a refuge against environmental catastrophe, a monumental project. Yes, but driven not by pride or defiance, but by necessity, a desperate attempt to secure their future. In the face of a volatile landscape, perhaps the tower wasn't a symbol of aspiration, but a shield. And yet, even if that were true, if they had managed to create this thriving, technologically advanced community, it wouldn't have been enough. The biblical account suggests a cataclysmic event, a divine judgment that brought their ambitions crashing down. What triggered that destruction? Was it simply hubris, or was there something more at play? The mystery remains, stubbornly persistent. Amidst the layers of time and speculation, are we looking at the remnants of a lost civilization, one that possessed knowledge far beyond our current understanding? Or are these merely intriguing anomalies, random coincidences in the vast sweep of history? Perhaps the most valuable lesson from the story of Babel isn't about warning against ambition, but about acknowledging the limits of our understanding. We can piece together fragments of the past, archaeological evidence, linguistic clues, geographical patterns, but we may never fully grasp the motivations and complexities of those who came before us. The echoes of Babel still resonate today, a reminder that even the grandest ambitions are ultimately subject to the forces of time and circumstance. And as we continue to explore this ancient landscape, one thing remains clear. The story is far from over. The rain begins again, a persistent drizzle that clings to the ancient stones. It washes away the dust, revealing new textures, new layers of history beneath. But it also obscures, concealing what might have been, blurring the lines between fact and speculation. We've looked at the geography, the language, the engineering prowess, evident in these forgotten settlements. Yet a persistent question remains. If this place was so advanced, so strategically positioned for survival, why did it disappear? Where are the descendants? The written records? The traditional narrative paints a simple picture. Divine retribution for human pride. A clear moral lesson about hubris and disobedience. But that explanation feels insufficient. It doesn't account for the tangible evidence of sophisticated technology, the intricate systems designed to manage water and resources. Could it be that the biblical story isn't an accurate depiction of what actually happened, or perhaps a symbolic representation of something far more profound, a warning disguised as a fable? Consider the concept of geoengineering. The builders of Babel weren't simply seeking to reach heaven. They might have been attempting to actively shape their environment, building massive structures, diverting rivers, creating artificial microclimates, all aimed at mitigating the harsh realities of this unforgiving landscape. It's a radical idea, one that challenges our conventional understanding of ancient civilizations. But it's not entirely without precedent. We see evidence today of societies attempting to manipulate their environments, from the canals of China to the terraced hillsides of Peru. And if they were experimenting with altering the environment, wouldn't that inevitably lead to unintended consequences? Perhaps a shift in climate patterns, a disruption of delicate ecosystems, a cascade of events that ultimately led to their downfall? The very act of trying to control nature could have triggered its own destruction. The symbols carved into those ancient stones remain enigmatic. They aren't simply religious iconography. They seem to represent complex mathematical concepts, astronomical observations, and potentially even blueprints for advanced technologies. Some researchers believe they depict a system of energy manipulation, a way to harness the power of the Earth itself. It's a provocative theory, suggesting that the builders of Babel possessed knowledge far exceeding our current understanding of physics, knowledge lost to time, perhaps deliberately suppressed, or simply forgotten. But even if we could decipher these symbols, would it truly unlock the secrets of this civilization? Decoding the language is only one piece of the puzzle. Understanding why they built, what drove their ambition, and ultimately led to their demise, remains a formidable challenge. The question isn't just about what they knew, it's about how they used that knowledge. Were they driven by a desire for progress, for technological advancement, or were they blinded by a misguided belief in their own superiority? A fatal flaw that ultimately doomed them? Perhaps the true tragedy of Babel wasn't its destruction, but its potential, a civilization on the cusp of greatness, armed with remarkable knowledge and engineering skills, yet lacking the wisdom to wield it responsibly. It's a cautionary tale not just about pride, but about the delicate balance between innovation and sustainability. The rain continues its relentless drumming, a constant reminder of this land's unpredictable nature, both physically and historically. It's easy to get lost in the details, the intricate carvings, the puzzling alignments, the sheer scale of what was attempted here. But sometimes, the most important question isn't what we find, but why it's there. We've explored the potential for geoengineering, for advanced technology, but those theories, however compelling, remain largely speculative. There needs to be a grounding in something more tangible, a way of connecting these isolated clues into a coherent narrative. Consider the concept of memory. Civilizations don't simply vanish, they transform. Their knowledge, their beliefs, their very essence are gradually absorbed by subsequent generations, often distorted and reshaped along the way. What if the story of Babel isn't about a sudden catastrophe, but a slow, gradual erosion, a process of forgetting that ultimately erased this civilization from history? The linguistic evidence is particularly intriguing in this regard. Proto-Indo-European, the ancestor of countless languages, originated here. But as these communities interacted and migrated, their languages diverged, creating distinct dialects, and eventually entirely separate languages. Could it be that the knowledge of Babel was lost, not through destruction, but through linguistic fragmentation, its core principles diluted and transformed over centuries of communication? And what about the concept of cultural memory? Societies often create myths and legends to explain their origins and justify their actions. The biblical story of Babel could have been a carefully constructed narrative designed to obscure the true history of this civilization and instill moral lessons in its successors. It's a sobering thought that even seemingly authentic historical accounts can be shaped by deliberate manipulation. Perhaps the story of Babel wasn't intended as a simple recounting of events, but as a form of cultural control, a way of maintaining power and suppressing dissent. The key lies in recognizing the limitations of our own perspective. We're trying to understand a civilization that existed thousands of years ago, a world vastly different from our own. Our assumptions about technology, social structure, and even human nature may be fundamentally flawed. Perhaps they didn't build Babel as a symbol of defiance, but as an attempt to preserve something, to safeguard their knowledge, their traditions, their way of life against the encroaching forces of change. It's a desperate measure, a final act of preservation in the face of inevitable decline. The silence surrounding this civilization is deafening. There are no grand monuments, no detailed written records, just fragments of evidence scattered across a vast and unforgiving landscape. Yet within those fragments lies a profound mystery, a testament to human ambition, ingenuity, and ultimately, our own fallibility. It's a humbling realization that even the most advanced civilizations are ultimately vulnerable to the forces of time and circumstance. And perhaps the true legacy of Babel isn't its construction, but the questions it continues to raise about our place in the universe, and the choices we make as stewards of this fragile planet. The wind shifts again, carrying with it a faint scent of rain, and something else, something ancient, and almost metallic. It's a subtle change, barely perceptible, yet it suggests that this landscape still holds secrets, whispers from a forgotten past. We've moved beyond simply identifying anomalies. We're beginning to grapple with the implications of those anomalies. If this civilization possessed such advanced knowledge, and if it ultimately succumbed to its own hubris or environmental pressures, what does that say about our own trajectory as a species? The recurring motif is not just ambition, but also the inherent tension between progress and sustainability. The builders of Babel sought to control their environment, to shape it according to their desires. But in doing so, they may have disrupted its delicate balance, triggering a cascade of events that ultimately led to their downfall. It's a cautionary parable, echoing through the millennia. Consider the parallels with our own era. We too are engaged in a relentless pursuit of technological advancement, driving innovation at an unprecedented pace. But we often fail to adequately consider the long-term consequences of our actions, jeopardizing the health of our planet and threatening the stability of our societies. The concept of information overload becomes relevant here. The builders of Babel may have possessed vast amounts of knowledge, but they lacked the wisdom to filter it, to discern what was truly valuable and what was merely distracting. Perhaps their downfall wasn't due to a lack of intelligence, but to an excess of it. There's a philosophical argument to be made that all civilizations are destined to repeat the same mistakes, driven by the same fundamental desires and anxieties. We build monuments to our achievements, only to see them crumble into dust. We chase technological progress, only to find ourselves grappling with unforeseen consequences. It's a tragic cycle, a reflection of our own human condition. But within that cycle lies an opportunity for growth, a chance to learn from the past and avoid repeating its errors. The story of Babel isn't simply about destruction. It's also about resilience, the ability to adapt, to rebuild, to find new ways of living in harmony with nature. Perhaps the key is not to abandon ambition altogether, but to temper it with humility, to recognize our limitations and appreciate the interconnectedness of all things, to seek knowledge not for its own sake, but for the betterment of humanity and the preservation of our planet. The question isn't whether we can achieve great things, but rather how we choose to use our power, whether for constructive or destructive purposes. The echoes of Babel serve as a constant reminder of that fundamental choice. And in the end, perhaps the most enduring legacy of this lost civilization isn't its towering structure, but its silent plea, a call to wisdom, responsibility, and a profound respect for the delicate balance of life. The sun breaks through the clouds, illuminating a small patch of moss-covered stone, a tiny fragment of a lost world. It's a fleeting moment of clarity, a reminder that even in the darkest depths of mystery, there is always the possibility of revelation. We've journeyed far from the initial question about the Tower of Babel, not to find definitive answers, but to grapple with the enduring questions it raises about humanity's relationship with itself and the world around it. The narrative hasn't been about uncovering a concrete historical account, but about exploring the possibilities, the tantalizing glimpses of a civilization that challenged our understanding of what was possible. It's about acknowledging the limitations of our knowledge, while embracing the wonder of the unknown. Consider the concept of resonance. The symbols carved into those ancient stones, they aren't just random patterns. They seem to vibrate with a deeper meaning, a connection to something beyond human comprehension. Perhaps this civilization possessed a form of intuition, an ability to perceive connections that elude our rational minds. This isn't about attributing supernatural powers, but recognizing the potential for alternative forms of knowledge, ways of understanding the universe that transcend conventional scientific methods. It's a humbling thought, that we may be missing something fundamental in our pursuit of objective truth. The story of Babel is ultimately a story about perspective. From one vantage point, it appears as a tale of arrogance and defiance. But from another, it can be seen as an act of profound courage, a bold attempt to shape the world according to one's own vision. It's a reminder that even seemingly destructive actions can have unforeseen consequences, that history is rarely black and white, but rather a complex tapestry of motivations and outcomes. Perhaps the most important lesson from Babel isn't about avoiding ambition altogether, but about cultivating wisdom, the ability to discern between noble aspirations and reckless pursuits. It's about recognizing that true progress lies not in conquering nature, but in living in harmony with it. And as we look out at this vast landscape, at these mountains that have witnessed countless generations come and go, we are left with a final, lingering question. What will our story be? Will we repeat the mistakes of the past, or will we choose a different path? One guided by humility, responsibility, and a profound respect for the fragile beauty of our planet? The wind picks up again, carrying away the last vestiges of sunlight. The mystery of Babel remains, a testament to the enduring power of human curiosity and the boundless depths of the unknown. But in acknowledging its complexity, we can begin to forge our own understanding. Not as conquerors seeking answers, but as seekers embracing the journey. This video has come to an end, but the discovery continues. Check out more content on the channel and subscribe so you don't miss what's next. Thank you for watching.